My name's Guy Kestevan, and I've been bitching about bikes professionally for nearly 28 years. And today, this is the tech talk around on the latest Calibre Bossnut, a bike that previously had an absolutely legendary reputation for delivering a fantastic ride quality for your money. So I'm going to talk you through all the great points that might make you want to bust a nut over the new Bossnut, but also some of the changes you might want to make to bring out its absolutely awesome all-round potential. But before I do that, and also answer a couple of questions that are already cropping up on the internet about this bike, if you could like, subscribe and click for notifications, that'd be awesome, because it really does make a massive difference. So first, just a couple of things to clear up on behalf of Jonny, the designer from Calibre, and to address the comments from the internet know-it-alls. Yes, it does look like a Polygon Siskiu T8, but it is not a Polygon Siskiu T8. Yes, Polygon used to make Calibres, but they don't anymore. And while the bike certainly has similarities in terms of shock placement and the overall hydroformed look, it has totally different geometry. And if you don't believe me, go and check them both out in a Go Outdoors store. Secondly, it is not just a Calibre Sentry remade. Again, looks very similar, has 29er wheels, but different travel, different geometry again. This is genuinely an all-new bike. I mean, like I say, Polygon used to make the Calibres, but during COVID, Calibre couldn't use that factory anymore because basically Polygon had their decks full just creating bikes for themselves because demand was so great. So Calibre got pushed out the door, but they found other vendors who have made a bike similar to the one that they already found was successful. No great surprises here. Plus, as we'll go through it, you'll see there's detailing on this bike that you won't get on a Polygon, or you didn't get on a Sentry. But we'll get round to that in a minute. So first, the important stuff. Head angle, 64.5 degrees. Seat angle, anywhere between 77.1 and 78 degrees, effective depending on where you have that saddle height set up. Reach, 475mm on this large, with a 440mm seat tube, because you've got a lower, more sloped top tube to give you more room for a dropper post. And dropper posts are size specific. 125 on the extra small, 150 on the medium, and then 170 on the large and the XL. And you will note there are XS and XL sizes, which is a really big deal for a brand that's trying to keep costs down. Opening up five different sizes just so they can get everybody on board a Calibre Bossnut is a really, really big investment in inclusivity, which I think deserves a big shout out to Calibre. Plus, on the extra small bikes, you get 27.5 wheels, front and rear, to get that more proportional handling. I mean, they haven't gone to a proportional rear end because that's a lot of expense again. So just be glad you're getting extra small to extra large, because you won't find that on brands like Voodoo at this price point. And indeed, a lot of other big name brands, you know. Restricting how many sizes you make a bike in is a big way of saving costs. Oh, and final bit of geo that you probably want to know is that the bottom bracket height is around 335mm, so relatively low. It's a pretty slammed bike. And then rear end length is 445mm. So again, moderate to large, good visibility, 40s, dogger bank, etc. In terms of travel, you have 135mm of travel at the rear, courtesy of that RockShox Deluxe Select shock. And then you have 140 at the front, courtesy of a RockShox Recon fork with an air spring, with a compression damper, and at the bottom, you got a rebound damper as well. Now, you do have to be quite careful setting up this fork, because that rebound, well, the damper, has a bit of a habit of getting slightly confused and a bit choky around the compression rebound point. So as you've finished absorbing the bump, as it comes back up again, it can sometimes hiccup a bit, and that can feel quite jarring. But basically, if you're thinking running less pressure will make it feel smoother, it doesn't seem to. I actually put the pressure up a bit, and the fork got a little bit smoother. But otherwise, really good, solid fork, literally a solid fork. There's a steel legs on it, so it is not light. But 35mm stanchions, adjustable air spring for different rider weights and different aggression levels. And yeah, pretty smooth. I mean, it takes sort of into double figures riding to get it really, really smooth, but That's the case with most RockShox forks at the moment, apart from the coil ones. So no surprises there. And then moving to the back, great to have a RockShox shock on here because obviously that's a big brand name shock. It's a common shock. You'll be able to get it serviced and sorted all over the place, which wouldn't be the case with a cheaper shock. And also really, really consistent, reliable shock. The only issue with it, I would say, is it currently comes with a very firm tune. It's very much tuned to kind of hit big stuff hard, to give support and very efficient feel off the top, rather than being smooth, plush, compliant, gripping the ground a lot. It's a very similar trick to what Santa Cruz pulled on the Tall Boy, and it suits very aggressive sort of smash and grab riders, or alternatively, more flowing sort of berm, bike park style terrain. So, you know, understandably, Calibre have got a lot of big jumpers and sort of free ride athletes on their roster, and this bike is tuned more towards those. And to be fair, I guess, more and more people are riding bike parks and kind of treating mountain bikes like a big BMX. So that's why this is tuned that way. But for me, for more natural riding, for that grip, both under braking, under power, and through corners, I would have preferred a more open tune and something that, you know, just is more supple and responsive and comfortable as well, because it does feel harsh if you're riding it for a while. Also, I found because it was so heavily damped, I was right at the bottom of the rebound range. Again, right at the bottom of the rebound range to try and balance things out. Although, again, the more pressure I put in the shock, although it's kind of counterintuitive, when I put more pressure in the shock, that brought me back into the rebound range, because obviously pressure in the shock needs to be balanced by more rebound, and that actually made it feel smoother overall, and I was still getting most of the travel on the hits I expected to. So again, just blow a little more wind into the suspension at either end and it will actually feel better. And obviously, you know, you need to service your shock on a fairly regular basis. I'm not sure how many Bossnut owners or indeed how many mountain bikers full stop actually do this. But in theory, after, you know, I don't even know what the service intervals are. Can't be more than 50 hours of riding. You should get that shock serviced anyway professionally, send it away. And when you do that, you can get that rear shock tune changed to a more open and comfortable feel if that's what you want. Or you may have just gone, nah, I really like it like this because it lets me ride hard and lets me just like properly skip over the top of stuff and maintain speed. Again, it's a horses for courses move. And, you know, talking to Jonny, if you've seen the designer chat, you will know that he has deliberately kept this bike as kind of poppy and playful as he possibly can. And that shock tune is kind of at the heart of that. Because otherwise, this is, you know, it's a big, heavy bike. There's no getting away from the fact 16.66 kilos in this large without pedals on is a lot of mass. But then that's pretty much par for the course on a bike at this price. It's actually slightly lighter than the Voodoo Canzo, and it's actually slightly lighter than the Voodoo Canzo with a very similar spec. And I just think it's things like, you know, like that steel-legged fork, like a strong frame that's designed to stand up to, you know, properly hardcore riding. I mean, people used to take Bossnuts to Morzine for a season, and yeah, not all of them survived, but they really want to make sure that this modern Bossnut is fully capable of doing some proper sending, and probably why they've got Lando Steezy on board, because if you've seen that dude ride, he is not gentle on bikes, but, you know, he's a brilliant way to showcase just how tough this new Calibre is. Kind of getting distracted here. Back to the suspension, you've now got a separate shock driving yoke and a rocker link as well. You've got bearings up here. You've got a main pivot bearing as well. They are a little bit notchy, particularly that clevis sort of double bearing there. There's a little bit of stiffness as you're rocking it backwards and forwards. So obviously that doesn't help shock sensitivity either. And then at the rear, you've actually got solid plastic, well, synthetic bushings in there rather than the bearing. And again, just a little bit of notchiness gets added to the suspension as a result of that. And obviously, you know, make sure you keep an eye on play in that rear bearing, in that rear pivot bushing, because that's going to need replacing when that starts to happen. And ditto, you know, always keep an eye on your pivot bearings as well, because you don't want the because you don't want movement and wear in those to migrate into the frame. So keep an eye on that. And when you do get the chance, I'd probably upgrade them with the best quality you can afford at the time. So if you can afford Enduro bearings, obviously bear them in mind, as they're a channel sponsor, and they will give you a remarkably smooth and long-lived performance for a frame that is well worth upgrading with the best kit, upgrading to extend its life. Because like I say, the geometry is absolutely bang on. The suspension is, it's great quality. You might want to tune the actual behavior of it further down the line if you want that plusher ride. But, the actual quality of the suspension is absolutely bang on. And you get a full Shimano Q's drivetrain. So you get crank, bottom bracket, rear mech, chain, and cassette. Again, very, very heavy stuff, particularly this riveted cassette. But on the plus side, super durable all the way. There's a lot of steel in this system, which makes it heavy, but it makes it tough as old boots. So again, super durable choice, and decent quality 30mm internal tubeless ready rim, and Shimano hubs front and rear, which is a big bonus in terms of longevity, certainly at this price. Plus, you got Shimano brakes as well. Not the most powerful brakes in the world. No, come on, let's not beat around the bush. They're pretty limp. And they're all right in the dry because resin pads and quite a soft rotor, so they give decent bite in the dry, but it's only a single piston caliper, despite it being called the 401, which is a bit misleading. And you're only getting a 1-inch 80mm rotor on the front. So I'd be tempted to upgrade that to a 200mm rotor for more leverage. But on the plus side, because the levers are very simple, you haven't got the free stroke or servo wave cam of the more expensive Shimano levers. They are super, super consistent and reliable. So, not the most touchy-feely of Shimano options, but super reliable, easy to maintain, and just a rock-solid choice. And if you have watched that designer interview with Jonny, he went through all sorts of different sort of combinations of brake and lever and hub and rotor to get the best brakes on here that he could while keeping the price low down. And even things like, the grips were specifically sourced from a vendor who didn't normally produce them in the territory that the bike was being made in, but Jonny managed to get them to make the grips because they really like these mushroom grips, as do I. And again, the saddle, that's a Calibre special edition from a brand that produces, saddles for so many people. But again, they've gone to real trouble getting the touch points right on this bike. And 45mm stem on a 780mm bar syncs pretty much perfectly with the overall handling. Just feels naturally really well weighted, confident, capable, stable. Yeah, it's just a really well sorted modern mountain bike in terms of the way it handles. Plus, already mentioned the dropper post, but it's worth going back to say you get a proper metal lever with an underbar and different mounting positions on it. So again, it'll feel like a top quality lever, and it won't rattle, it won't snap off, more importantly, like resin levers can do in a crash. And this is an X-Fusion Manic dropper post. Really well proven, used by a lot of big brands over the years, just as it's pretty simple, but twin clamp up top, good, well proven mechanism. It really does the job. It's not just a throwaway cheapest chips component choice. It's something worth having in your bike. And obviously having that as standard equipment for 1,500 quid, that's a bit of a steal when it comes to new bikes. What else haven't we talked about? Going back to the frame detail, you've got ISCG mounts for your international standard chain guide on there if you need a bit more chain retention. Although, to be fair, not had any problem at all. Shimano Qs, either on this bike or the Voodoo that I've been having around, and some other bikes I've used Qs on. Not an issue there. You've got Maxxis DHF 29 by 2.5 inch front tyre, which is, it's a cheaper compound. It's wire bead, which again adds weight, but it's a really, really well proven, good balance of grip and reasonable rolling speed. And then at the back, you have got the Maxxis Forecaster. Great all-rounder. It's more of an XC speed tyre than the front tyre, but then that means, especially as it's in this harder compound on the wire bead carcass, it just rolls a bit faster and really does help this Bossnut move along quite nicely, considering how heavy it is. Once you've got over that inertia, this bike actually rolls really well because it pedals really efficiently because of that shock tune in it. So that's sorted. Looking at the frame, you've got external cable routing, absolute bonus in terms of servicing and in terms of brake swapping, etc. Not the prettiest thing, looks like a bit of an oil refinery down here, but because you've got multiple clamps, it's not rattling around on the paintwork. You've got room for a full-size bottle in there, plus you've got 2 sets of accessory mounts underneath the top tube as well. Bike comes as standard without a chainstay protector, so you can see we've obviously started losing some chips of paint off here, and it's actually eaten one of its zip tie fixings for that rear gear cable. But Calibre do a purpose-made clip-on chain guide if you want it, which is available as an aftermarket extra, or you can just wrap a bit of old inner tube or tyre or whatever you've got that's rubbery and you can stick on there, and that'll do the job absolutely fine. So the only real miss in terms of it being a totally modern frame is the fact that you still have a proprietary rear gear hanger. Looks chunky enough, but even at this price level, we are now seeing some frames moving to SRAM's UDH rear hanger, which obviously makes finding spares a little bit easier. So if you know you're going to be a long way from a Go Outdoors store and you might run into problems with your bike, then I'd make sure you get a spare gear hanger when you get the bike. So that's the tech talk done, and hopefully I've answered most of the questions you've got about this bike. But if not, get busy in the comments, and if I don't know, then I'll make sure I get straight in touch with the team at Calibre so you can get official answers on those. But also, please make sure you watch the chat with Jonny about the development of the bike, because it's super interesting. And of course, watch my live ride review on the bike, where I take you on board on my favourite test trails and talk you through the pros and cons of this bike live from the trails themselves. It's kind of what I do, and hopefully it brings the bike to life in a really dynamic and engaging way, so you can really feel what it's like to ride, reinforcing why this new Calibre Bossnut really is one of the best bargain mountain bikes you can buy right now, whether that's for yourself or if you're recommending it for a mate who's on a more restricted budget than you are. So make sure you watch all of those. Do the like, subscribe, click for notification things. If you really like the channel, then please consider supporting me on Patreon, where you'll get exclusive early and behind the scenes edits as a thank you, and they're all ad free as a bonus. And that costs you about the same as a cup of tea and biscuit a month. So that'd be awesome if you could support me through there. And please think about supporting my industry sponsors by shopping with them when you get the chance. Because if you shop with them, they continue to support me and everybody's happy. But for now, I've been Guy Kestevan talking about the marvellous value for money machine that is the new Calibre Bossnut.